You better wake up, 'cause I see the colonel coming over the hill. See, they could have taken the gun, but where would they go?
Right. The last thing they wanted to do is, all the accounts I've heard, the last thing they wanted to do was go back to Germany and.
They didn't.
and-
Well, you know, Windsor is full of those prisoners.
Right.
They went
Yeah.
home and came back and settled in Windsor.
Yeah.
Mhm. They bought land and businesses in Windsor, and there's a lot of them still there.
Yeah.
Because I lived in Windsor a while, so.
Because it was true that once they got back to Germany,
Nothing.
there was nothing.
There was
right?
nothing for them.
They'd already been in a place where there was everything that they'd
Mhm.
always, I presume, dreamed of, and
Yeah.
they were able to come back.
And they saved and saved and come back to Colorado.
Yeah.
Nice people.
Yeah.
But,
Real
you know, everybody hollers about Germany and this and that, but you know, they pretty near, that little bitty old country, must have been doing something right. They pretty near whipped the world twice. Boy, it's a sad, and here we are, and we can't even take care of our own people and stuff. It's,
Any other, taking too much time?
No. You got about 3-4 minutes. Okay, questions? Anybody else want to jump in?
did I tell them about the German prisoners we brought back on the boat?
No, no, go ahead.
Not this. We brought a load of German prisoner patients on the ship back, and we got out of New York in that evening and come over the PA system that they didn't have to shut the portholes on the ship that night. And those, well, they're 14, 15-year-old patients and stuff, they just went bugged. They was told that New York was already bombed and everything else. And here they come over that they don't have to shut the portholes. And they was so scared. And when we got in close enough to see the lights, why the other guys or prisoners would hold the ones up to the windows so they could see the lights, that they was still lights on in New York and not been bombed or anything. And those prisoners, you could talk to them, biggest part of them you could make out, you know, and they could tell you more about your country than you could. They'd ask you where you was from, and I'd say near Denver, and shoot, they'd tell you where the airport was and arsenal and everything else. They knew, was taught that, well, that's all they was taught.
And the fact is that you as a medic, the German prisoners that you were bringing back were cared for just as well as the American casualties, I presume, right?
Yeah. We got on one ship, it was the English ship, and well, you could have blindfolded me and I could tell you every English ship was in harbor. But they'd feed you nothing but old lamb. It wasn't, well, it was mutton, what it was. And they went to doing that to the patients. And I told my captain, there was only 15 of us, enlisted men and 2 captains. And I told the captain, I says, there's something wrong. I said, they got feed on this ship for those patients. And he says, well, there's patients. I says, you go look at your manual. And I says, there's food. See, a patient, an American patient, gets double rations. It's in the Army code.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I says, there's Englishman is keeping that food from these patients. And I says, you go check. And he went down, and boy, it wasn't the next meal we had food. It was just, but they'd keep it,
Themselves.
sell back.
Let me wind up with this hour with this question. The Red Cross during World War II, what was your encounter with the Red Cross?
I wouldn't have nothing to do with them.
No?
No.
Why is that?
Oh, well, there's too many things that they pulled that it wasn't
Really?
funny.
Really?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, my brother, don't talk to Red Cross to him. They were in there, out there fighting, actually fighting, and the Red Cross would come out with cigarettes and coffee and sandwiches. Well, you gotta pay for this. Well, you're in your fatigues, you know, you don't have. And here come the Salvation Army and gave them everything they wanted. Everything.
So the Salvation Army was
It was right there,
right there, all through World War II?
right there, where he was stationed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you both for a great hour.
Thank you.
I talked too much.
All right, thank you all, and we're now going to switch over to your research. And who would like to go first? You need your full name again, please. Okay, now we're going to do the research element here for students.
Yeah, questions 1 through 4.
Okay.
My name is Christina Schetzel, and I'm addressing the question, the cultural history of the community from where our informants came from. And the cultural history around that area is primarily they farmed beets, corn, watermelon, and their families were pretty tight-knit, and they could survive on their own in just living off the land and trapping and whatnot. It was also very fortunate that the South Platte ran through that area, giving them enough water, so on and so forth.
I'm also going to answer number 1. My name is David Edgar. I also felt that culturally they were all dependent on each other as a family. They all learned from each other. Everything in their family was brought in from either Salvation Army, their clothes and stuff like that. I feel that their parents probably, taught them about their life and how they all lived, and other than that, that's pretty much it.
I've got to add one more thing. The other thing that has to do with this cultural background is primarily a lot of the families were German, Russian immigrants, and that had a tie throughout their being raised and whatnot. And that's
Okay.
all.
Okay. All right, on the subject of...
You are?
I'm Jessica Slaughter, and I'm going to be covering the oral history and how it relates to anthropology, that aspect of this project. And oral history is an important part and key, a good method of research for anthropology, and it kind of acts as almost a substitution, if you can't actually live among a different culture or society. And as oral history is basically a social memory or history of a culture or people, it through interviewing a person and getting their personal history and experience through their culture and society, we can learn more about that culture and society. And as anthropology is the study and research of different societies and cultures, that kind of correlates with it. And it brings kind of a new perspective to anthropology, as when one first hears oral or anthropology, we kind of think of exotic places and foreign people, but doing oral histories of people in our own community or own country, we can see that there are different groups and societies and cultures within one country like America. And that's about it.
Okay, you make a good point, and let me just expand on that a little bit. Oral history happens every day. And of course, any chance you get to record a person's reaction or an experience is important from the historical perspective. And if now you get a chance to go to the NPR site and pick out, there's an interview by Terry Gross just a couple of weeks ago of Douglas Brinkley. Douglas Brinkley is a historian from Tulane University, and you see him on television frequently now, but his point is that he's now mounting an effort from Tulane to go record as quickly as possible the survivors' stories from all the hurricane refugees, because he says the same thing happens. I mean, we're very fortunate and lucky that we have these two who have clear, unedited memories of experiences 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Okay, because there is this imperative, for whatever psychological reason, of revisionist history, where things change, and that was Douglas Brinkley's point, that he wants to get out there in the field now, get these histories, and get an accurate depiction of what is and was, and that's part of the media, the conflict between life in their times and now, because you all are bombarded by information. And so even in your own life, if you kind of try to patch back where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, the sequence of events, because there are so many events, there's so much complexity to your own lives, it's tough to keep track of it all. I think that's true for everybody. And in that context, people who have come from a non-information age to an information age, the fact that they can put this into a workable perspective where they can deal with the tsunami of change, not to mention just the sheer volume of new information that they're wrapped in. It's remarkable. I mean, that's a big point about human evolution and how people are adaptive, just like any other culture is adaptive. Now we're adapting to a new social culture based on a global economy and a global information capacity. So that's all very, very interesting. And so, my pitch to every group is, now is your opportunity. Now you've seen the format. We made up this format for this class. We just said, okay, we're going to do it. And so with tools of the digital age, a couple $100 worth of camcorder, you are now capable of becoming a very sophisticated oral history historian. You can do it yourself. And I recommend that you do. You start in your immediate environment, go find your own relatives, get the best stories you can, go out there, and because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't have the slide study. You practiced with a few questions here, but you know more about your own family than anybody else. And so that you have the ability and the access and the opportunity to feed that information into a camera, and then contribute that to the oral history archive. And that's where the internet's now becoming vital, because it's going to be possible with what are called vlogs. You know about vlogs? Okay, that's video blogging. Okay, that's a term that's about a month old. But the idea is you can take your own video, pump it up to your own website, or what will then become an oral history website, and all of a sudden that information is out there and accessible by everybody. Again, the reason we're transcribing this is because, as for research, it's impossible to sit through a zillion hours of tape and find anything. So you have to be able to word search. And now you're all Google people, right? You know how to go find something. You've now, in the last 2 or 3 years, you've had this extraordinary capacity to learn anything you want to learn, because it's at your fingertips. Libraries were always important, but you had to get to town. You had to find time to spend there, and then you had to go through these shelves and shelves of books to find anything about anything. And a lot of the information was old. Now your information is, hours old sometimes, and accessible. So, You know, as she is saying, you know, you've got it made in that regard that, you know, if you, anything you want to learn, you can learn. You know, there's absolutely nothing, no impediment to your ability to go out and find out whatever you want to learn. And so, you know, again, my pitch is to make your contribution, do your own oral histories, and feed it into the digital media so that it's preservable. Well done, group.
Can they actually finish theirs?
Oh,
They're
yes,
just one of
right.
it.
Exactly. Sorry, that
My
drug
name's
you
Jenna
off into
White.
that.
And I'm going to address number 3, and it's how this experience relates to the course. And just through this course of anthropology, it's basically the study of history and other people's cultures and backgrounds, and just comparing them and their development, and just the study of humankind and history. And I think that this experience was a perfect example of how it should be done. Interviewing is one of the best ways you can get information from another background or culture, just because you're relating personally, one-on-one, with people who have actually experienced it. And recording it is, as you said, like a great way to just keep track of it. And so I think that it relates. And it's just, it basically is anthropology, just studying and getting the information directly. So.
If I can add to that real quick.
Sure.
All right, and also, like, everybody has their own life history and story to tell, and through their own personal experiences and learning about their history, we can kind of almost piece, like, a group of peoples from, like, the same culture, time period, society, and kind of fit them together to, like, kind of make a fabric and piece together, like, a culture as a whole, and kind of learn about it that way through, like, a bunch of individual experiences and perspectives.
Good point.
I'm Mariah Shea, and the whole process of the interview was just wonderful, being able to sit here and hear about the experiences and the thoughts and feelings that went with those from, you know, people that had a completely different lifestyle than what we have now. It's very enlightening and fulfilling to be able to have that connection to your past.
Very good. Thank you
Thank you.
to the Oasters. Very good job. Thank you all.